Hello, welcome to the part of Heroes for Sale, which we like to call Between the Panels, because it can be left open to your imagination and opinion to fill in what the visuals are. But we're joined here today by Jaleesa, who works at Worlds Apart, Tim Quinn, mighty former writer and editor of Marvel magazine, amongst other things, and the talented illustrator Ilan Chidi. And today we're going to be talking about all things Marvel related, really, because the movie Avengers Age of Ultron is causing a smash at the box office. I think a few of us have seen it. It's doing quite well, but Tim, you're saying you've seen enough with the trailer, haven't you?
I've seen, yeah, I click on the trailers as I'm sitting at my office desk, and the trailers seem to have been coming for about 6 years now, you know, you're seeing more and more of the movie as it goes on. And it's just, I don't know, the movies just don't do it for me, you know. I love the comics as a storytelling medium. And I think that an artist and a writer can go a million miles further than the biggest budget movie. And I think the movies are all too long. I think they should remember it's comic books, you know, keep it short, sharp, hit, leave them wanting more.
What do you think about what they're doing with the characters, though? Because, I mean, and they are winning a wider audience.
Yeah, I know, so what do I know, you know? But personally, I just find them not even two-dimensional, just one-dimensional. You know, so Tony Stark with the wisecracking, it's just, it was fine to begin with in Iron Man 1, but it's like, how many times do you want to see that? I want more flesh on the bones, you know, and don't really get them. And you're not really going to get it in even a 2.5-hour Avengers movie, because everybody's out there to beat everybody else's brains into the dust, you know. So
there's plenty of
not
that
my cup of tea, really.
What I think with this one, though, is that this is the first movie out of all the Marvel films that I've seen where it's more the non-fighting side of it, which is exciting, because there is the action scenes, but I always find, in this film, this is the first time I thought, just get back to the conversations, because the stuff that they were doing outside of their uniforms and outside of their battles was the more interesting part of the film. I don't know if that's just because I'm overexposed now to huge battle scenes and buildings falling down and explosions.
Yeah. There's the romance between Hulk and Black Widow, which is particularly interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
well, I wish I could be more positive like you, but I don't even like the way that they dull down the costumes, you know. And I hate the fact that the masks go at the first opportunity, because these are very famous actors and we have to see their faces and we have to see their reactions. They would argue that, well, it's to show how we're reacting to it. But, you know, it's comic books. I want to see it. I want to see the masks and capes, please, for me. Call me old-fashioned. But, you know, didn't hurt Adam West.
That's true. But do you think a comic could be recreated as a movie and still be given?
Yeah, I think it could. I also, you mentioned the word romance, and I love that. And years ago, I approached Andrew Lloyd Webber with the idea of doing a Marvel musical, and he was 100% into the idea. It was one of those things that almost happened. And the reason he bought it was because he found the idea so romantic that suddenly there's a guy there with powers rippling through his body, and the first thing he wants to do is to throw on skin tights and a cape and a mask. And he's got a girlfriend. And he said, everything's there for romance, real romance.
You could certainly imagine him bursting into song with all that backstory.
You could, and I know that, you know, Bono and co did it, but I think for me, Andrew Lloyd Webber would have handled it better. Again, I can hear the groans from your audience.
I'd love to hear the comments coming back to that.
Well, I think there's an argument to be made for the movies actually win a new audience for comics and get new readers into reading, which is a very powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And Jaleesa, you've probably spotted that with you know, working in the city centre comic shop.
Yes, definitely, especially with Free Comic Book Day, which was last Saturday. We sold so many copies of The Walking Dead, so much Daredevil Yellow. And it's the kind of things where I feel if you've been reading comics for a long time, you're not suddenly going to go, oh, I'll pick that up because it was on TV. But it's a lot of people that seem to have seen the series and are going, well, where can I start? And are looking for an introduction and looking for ways into it. And a lot of the time, it's people that are starting to get into things like The Walking Dead that will make their first visit and will then see Saga, Chew, Miss Marvel, and start picking a whole variety up. And it's nice to have that kind of entryway, because I remember when I was younger, I found it quite difficult to go into my first comic book shop because of the community around it.
I feel like there's almost like a snobbishness that you get in record shops. That's a famous snobbishness, isn't it? Like, what have you come in for? And you might be asking for the wrong thing.
Yes, it's like that joke online where you read comics, well, tell me who the third Robin was, otherwise you don't like Batman.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of needing to prove yourself. And it's nice that the TV and the series and the films are offering a way into comics where you don't have to prove yourself. And there is a community of people that are also starting out. And I think that's helping a lot, definitely.
So it's gone quite mainstream now.
Yeah.
And that gives people a carte blanche to go and try things out. And we just had Free Comic Book Day as well, which was a big thing in the store. And that's again another way for people to get into reading and trying different things out. One of the biggest titles I think coming out is Marvel's Secret Wars, which we have here, issue 1. And can you tell us a little bit about that and how they're resetting the universe?
You know what, I feel terrible about this. I haven't read enough of Marvel to fully understand Secret Wars. I feel like it's so many universes colliding that of the Ultimate Universe, I've only read Miles' Spider-Man, and of the regular universe, I've been getting into the newer titles like Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, things like that. So while I recognise a few here, I think giving a full breakdown is above my skill level right now.
That's the idea, isn't it? We want to keep the readers both confused and engaged at the same time. That certainly must be part of the marketing ploy.
I think every page that I looked in that comic, I had the kind of look on my face, because I mean, I know of the Ultimate Universe, and I've read a lot of the Ultimate Universe, but that doesn't look the same to me, because I think I've missed out on a few for a few months, and the same thing with the regular universe. So I think to drop into that is almost impossible, because it is so complex and you're in the middle of arguments and conversations. It's like watching like an episode of EastEnders when you're having, you know what you've done.
What's going on here?
Someone's having an argument and they're not talking to each other, but they won't tell you why they're arguing. It's kind of like that with that. I mean, it does look immense, it looks brilliant, and it's obviously setting up something for issue 2, because this is obviously issue 1.
But the idea is that all the different versions of all these heroes are meeting together and they have to battle it out to find out who's going to win to survive.
Well, reading just that doesn't come across yet. I mean, if it might do in the next issue, but in that one, nothing says, all these characters are going to come together and fight. This is basically kind of like some sort of Armageddon, 2 planets colliding and everyone seemingly dying.
Sure.
And
well,
that's
killing off comic characters is nothing new, isn't it?
This is everyone dying.
Definitely.
if the last panel of that, everyone is dead in every universe, from what I can see from that. But we know that something's going to come from it.
What's with dying? Everywhere I look, everybody's dying. And I don't just mean in my life at this age. I mean in comic books and Doctor Who. Right. Everybody dies, and then they're back, and then they die again, and then they're back.
Of ramping up
What
drama,
is this? Why though? Why though? You know, I don't remember this level of extermination going on when I was a boy reading comics, and I don't see what the pull is because it's no longer effective, surely, because you know if it's a known character, they'll be back. So where do you think it's going to take your characters? Oh, woe is me. I know, Uncle Ben set off the whole thing with Spidey, and that was kind of cool. But just death after death after death that is meaningless ultimately. And to have a first issue of a comic where a comic book reader says it's a bit incomprehensible to him. Well, I think about 8, 9, 10-year-old kids picking this up. And a whole generation, the next generation coming up. For me, as an editor, as a reader, that is unforgivable. That's nuts.
I mean, they don't do that whole little box C issue 46 of Spider-Man to understand what that line is, because if they did that, you wouldn't see any artwork, because there'd be that many panels saying you need to have bought a lot by this point. But yeah, it's not very open to kind of new readers now. I think now, with the films as well, I think they're not going to bother doing explanations anymore. They're not going to bother doing flashbacks anymore. They're not going to bother explaining anything to you. You just now have to accept this is the Marvel universe.
Well, then they're not going to pick up new readers, because there's a lot of people out there who would be open. I mean, comic books, for over 100 years were a way of growing up, certainly in the UK and in the US. It was a major part of your childhood. And for me, that's who I always aimed everything I wrote at. Doesn't mean I never wrote down for kids, because they would figure it out. But I think it's got to be understandable to everybody,
Yeah. Well, they have opened up audiences in another way by introducing a lot more diversity into comics these days, haven't they? And I think we've been having conversations before we sat down at this nice purple table to talk about how they can do that. And I think, we've got a lot more female readership in comics, which a growing female readership rather, which they have to cater to. And they've done something interesting with the characters Miss Marvel, and we've got a female Thor now, which would have been unthinkable, I would imagine, in your day, wouldn't it, to go into Marvel and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn, you know...
I don't know, your day you had a frog Thor, didn't you?
I like it. In my day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the... Well, if I can cast my mind back... yeah, it's a little odd, or you know, but hey, it's a storyline, I guess, you know, and I'm sure Don Blake at some point will probably be back, no matter what they've done to him at the moment, because that will be another storyline. So where you've got a character that's, you know, his stories have run for 50 years, you can take it anywhere, really, can't you? I mean, just all you need is a cane in a cave to bang on the floor and turn you into the god of thunder. Yeah,
they've got to evolve in some ways, haven't they? But I do think, you know, Ms. Marvel, you were telling us that she's become a totally different character, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's a young Pakistani girl now, so she's a Muslim teenager in New Jersey, and it's really interesting to see her trying to reconcile her religion and her parents and being an Inhuman and having a massive fangirl crush on Captain Marvel as well, and bringing all of those things together. It's something I haven't seen for a long time, and it did remind me of the good old-fashioned super early Spider-Man where he was just getting beaten up in the hallways and dealing with being an outsider. It was really refreshing to see.
So it's like a little postmodern nod as well to other things, which I think Marvel does really well. Okay, well, that's great. Well, thanks very much for joining me today. That was Diversity in Comics and Avengers. Please do join us again next time, where we'll be talking about more hot talking points in the world of comics.
Thanks for watching Heroes for Sale. Did you agree with us? Let us know. Comment below. Also, if you haven't done it already, please subscribe, as we'll be uploading much more geeky awesomeness to come.